So Magellan traveled from Spain to explore the Moluccas Island, but subsequently discovered our country. So he first landed in southern Leyte, specifically sa Limasawa. So where is southern Leyte? Ito yung Leyte. So from Spain, Magellan traveled here, then towards there, that's southern Leyte. So from Spain, balikan ulit natin yung pattern of exploration ni Magellan. This is Spain. He traveled from the Atlantic Ocean to Brazil, to the Central Americas, to Pacific Ocean, and then later on discovered our country, yung Leyte. So nandito yung Moluccas Island sa lower part, pero yung galleon ni Magellan dumiretso dito. So instead of here, napunta siya rito sa southern Leyte. So this is southern Leyte, itong part na to. And then yung Limasawa is somewhat located on this part, Limasawa Island. So dito yung first area for exploration ni Magellan from Spain. So in Limasawa, he first met Raha Kulambo. So when we say Raha, ibig sabihin ng Raha is the chieftain or the leader of a specific community. So this is Magellan, and then he met with Raha Kulambo in Limasawa. So what happened in Limasawa? This is Magellan. They have their first meeting. Limasawa was ruled by Raha Kulambo. Raha means it's your datu or the chieftain of the community. And then in that community, the friendship of Magellan and Raha Kulambo was sealed by a blood compact. So naging amicable yung first meeting nila. And then the people under the supervision of Raha Kulambo was converted into Catholicism. First Catholic Mass was held in Limasawa, southern Leyte. So let's check this image for us to easily remember Limasawa and then Raha Kulambo. So Kulambo is Mosquitero. So how do we associate Kulambo and Mosquitero with what happened in Limasawa? So Mosquitero, there's a letter M. There's a letter M. Mosquitero, letter M, and then letter M for the Mass. So Kulambo, it's a Tagalog word. The other Tagalog word for Kulambo is Mosquitero. You have the letter M in Mosquitero, which is also present in the word first Mass, yung letter M dun sa Mass. So Raha Kulambo, it's in Limasawa, wherein the first Catholic Mass was held. From Limasawa, Magellan, ito yung Limasawa. Magellan traveled to Cebu. So nandito yung Limasawa. Andyan yung southern Leyte. Ito yung Leyte. So from the Pacific Ocean, dito siya nag-traverse. And then he landed here. After converting Limasawa to Catholicism, Magellan traveled from Limasawa, southern Leyte, to Cebu. Yung Cebu. So what happened in Cebu? He met Raha Humabon. So Raha Humabon is another chieftain in that area. And then maganda ba yung first meeting nila? Yes, they have an amicable first meeting. They have, similar with Raha Kulambo, they also have their first blood compact. Ano yung blood compact? The blood coming from Magellan and blood coming from Humabon are combined in a specific vessel. So that symbolizes their friendship. Ibig sabihin ng blood compact. So ibig sabihin, nagsama na yung dugo nila sa isang vessel. So that's the symbolism behind blood compact. It's an agreement between two different nations. Cebu was ruled by Raha Humabon. And then Humabon, in return, since maganda yung first meeting nila ni Magellan, Humabon convinced other Rahas in Cebu to recognize the power of Magellan and Spain. All of the chieftains in Cebu submitted themselves to the command of Humabon, except for one chieftain. That's Lapu-Lapu. Lapu-Lapu is the leader of Mactan. So, nasan yung Mactan? We will discover where Mactan is. Cebu was converted to Catholicism. So, same thing with the Southern Leyte. Sa Limasawa, ganun din yung nangyari sa Cebu. So, ito yung actual image ng conversion ni Magellan dun sa Cebu. So, dun sa Limasawa, nagkaroon tayo ng First Catholic Mass. Dito sa Cebu, nagkaroon tayo ng First Catholic Baptism. First baptism that happened in our country is in Cebu. So, anong kinalaman ng image nito? Dun sa nangyari kay Magellan and sa Cebu. Humabon is sabon. Okay, pride is also a soap. So, let's try to easily remember Humabon. Kanina sa Colombo, we have the Mosquitero. So, Humabon, sabon. So, if you need sabon, kailangan mo rin ng tubig. So, if you need water, that pertains to baptism. After being baptized using water, sabon is also used for removing sebo. Sebo, Cebu. So, ano yung mga tatanda natin for Humabon? Humabon, sabon, there's water for baptism, and then sabon is sounded like Cebu. So, where did baptism take place? Sabon, Humabon, it's in Cebu. Isa lang ang may pride dun sa Cebu, yung ayaw magpa-convert to Catholicism, yung ayaw magpa-submit sa supervision ng Cebu, it's Lapu-Lapu. So, si Lapu-Lapu ang nag-maintain ng pride. Sabi dito, ang pride ay sabon at hindi dapat ginagamit sa relasyon. This is the actual photo after the baptism. Yung cross ni Magellan was established in Cebu. This commemorates the first Catholic baptism in that place. Ito yung actual photo ni Magellan. It's an interpretation dun sa pagbigay ng regalo ng Santo Niño dun sa asawa ni Raha Humabon. That's why in Cebu, you have your fiesta ng Santo Niño to commemorate the first baptism in our country. This is Lapu-Lapu. Ito yung buong Cebu na nag-submit, nag-comply dun sa gusto ni Humabon. So, almost all of Cebu was converted to Catholicism except for Mactan Island. Asan ang Mactan Island? Ito. So, if you can see, Mactan Island is separated from the island of Cebu. So, if that's the case, how did Lapu-Lapu win the match between Magellan? If Magellan waged war with Lapu-Lapu, paano siya nanalo kay Magellan? If Spain is already advanced in terms of technology, in terms of weaponry, compared to us, hindi pa tayo masyadong advanced so weaponry, paano natalo ni Lapu-Lapu si Magellan? The basic answer for that is the geographic area of Mactan Island. Mactan Island is separated from Cebu. So strategic yung area ng Mactan Island. That's why it was very hard for the forces of Spain, forces of Magellan, to conquer completely Mactan Island. Why? Because of corals. Maraming corals ang nagsusurround dito sa area ng Mactan. So if we have a galleon ship, madali bang mag-anchor ng ship dito sa island to bring your resources there, to bring your weapons there? Madali ba? It was very hard for the forces of Magellan to anchor their ship there. That's why hindi nila hindi sila nakapag-recuperate ng resources. Hindi nila nadala yung mga malalaki nilang weapons to colonize Mactan Island. So Lapu-Lapu was defiant even if Magellan used diplomacy at first. So at first, Magellan wanted to use diplomacy to convince Lapu-Lapu to be converted to Catholicism and submit to the power of Spain. Pero ayaw ni Lapu-Lapu. Conditions, ang sabi ni Magellan, if you will not be submissive, there will be war. So hindi naging submissive si Lapu-Lapu. That's why there was a war that happened between Spain and our country. Akala ni Magellan mananalo siya, pero hindi niya inakala na yung area ni Lapu-Lapu is very strategic. The reason for that is they cannot bring all of their weapons in Mactan. Manny Pacquiao made a movie that about Lapu-Lapu. Hindi ko lang alam kung bumenta yon. So may warning yung Spain. Ito yung warning. If Lapu-Lapu will not submit himself, there will be war. Yung actual photo, yung representation. This is only a representation ng pag-anchor ng ship. Pero hindi ito mga Pilipino. Iba to. Ito lang yung representation that would picture out the difficulty of Spain. That's why they cannot bring all of their weapons across the sea papunta dun sa island. So malamang ang dala-dala lang nila is swords and konting armaments. So hindi nila nabawi yung mga nagamit nila. Kaya sila natalo. Now let's discuss our territorial rights as a nation and the situation of our country prior to the colonization of Spain. Pag-usapan natin ngayon kung ano yung mga karapatan natin dun sa territory natin bilang nation, and then ano yung situation ng bansa natin before we were colonized by Spain. Now before that, let's discuss first another treaty made by Spain with Portugal. A while ago, we were able to discuss the first treaty made by Spain with Portugal. It's the Treaty of Tordesillas. Treaty of Tordesillas, we remember pastillas. Why? Because pastillas shape is elongated. Medyo pahaba yung shape ng pastillas. So anong kinalaman ng pastillas dun sa Tordesillas? Tordesillas is a treaty, an agreement between Spain and Portugal wherein the world was divided into two, and then nagkaroon ng demarcation line. Okay, may line. Anong issue ng line? Parang pastillas, pahaba. So yung Spain napunta sa west, lahat ng lands na pwedeng makonquer ng Spain sa west, sa kanya yun. And then sa east, lahat ng lands na pwedeng makonquer ng Portugal sa east, sa kanya yun. So again, yung west napunta sa Spain, and then yung east napunta sa Portugal. And then we have another treaty, sa Treaty of Zaragoza. So anong kinalaman ng photo na to sa Treaty of Zaragoza? So balikan natin yung photo na to, si Jessa Zaragoza. Kung hindi po kayo familiar kay Jessa Zaragoza, si Jessa Zaragoza is an artist. She's an artist in the 90s. And Dingdong Avenzano, artist din ng 90s. And then si Rufa Maginto, artist din ng 90s. Si Dingdong Avenzano, ang ex niya, si Rufa, ang present wife ni Dingdong, si Jessa Zaragoza. So Zaragoza. Jessa Zaragoza, Treaty of Zaragoza. So ano nangyari dun sa Treaty of Zaragoza? Let's assume that this is Portugal and this is Spain. So Spain si Rufa Maginto, and then Portugal si Jessa Zaragoza. Ang Spice Islands, ang Moluccas, bakit nila kailangan pagtalunan ng Moluccas Island or the Spice Islands? This was the first objective of Magellan that he wanted to discover. So gusto talaga ni Magellan na ma-discover muna yung Spice Islands. If you're going to assess the location of the Moluccas or the Spice Islands, it's actually located in the east. Ang ginawa lang ng Spain, nilito lang yung Portugal. Dumaan siya sa west, sa Pacific Ocean, and then nakita niya doon yung Moluccas, Spice Islands. So, Spain discovered Moluccas first. So, Spain was insisting that Moluccas Island was in the west because he was able to discover Moluccas Island or the Spice Islands coming from the west. Hindi naman siya nanggaling sa east. Okay, so binenta ngayon ni Spain si Spice Island kay Portugal. That's why pagmamay-ari na ni Portugal si Spice Islands. Now, this is very tricky. Nilin lang ngayon ni Spain si Portugal. Kasi all the lands in the east officially belong to Portugal. If you're going to assess again, Spice Islands is actually located in the east. So, Portugal bought what actually was her. So, binili ni Portugal si Spice Island na kung saan si Spice Island ay talaga naman sa kanya. So, naisahan ni Spain si Portugal. So, binayarin ni Portugal si Spain ng pera for acquiring Spice Islands. That's Treaty of Zaragoza. So, to remember, the Treaty of Zaragoza, yung conflict existing between Portugal and Spain. Conflict existing between Jesse Zaragoza and Rufa Maquinto. Okay, that's Treaty of Zaragoza. Yung kanina, it's Treaty of Tordesillas. Pastillas, pahaba. We have the line. Yung line pahaba, the word was divided into two by, tandaan po, by drawing a demarcation line from the north to the south. That's Treaty of Tordesillas. Now, let's examine the elements, important elements that comprise the Philippine geography or the Philippine territory. This was supported by our Constitution, the 1987 Constitution or the Constitution made by Cory Aquino. So, this is a Constitution hanggang ngayon, ito pa naman yung Constitution natin, hindi pa nababago. So, the Constitution prior to this was the Constitution of Marcos. So, until now, we're still using this Constitution, the 1987 Constitution. So, according to Article 1, there are 5 elements that support our territory, geographical territory of our nation. First is sovereignty. Sovereignty pertains to power. So, sinong may kapangyarihan over our territory? It's us, Filipinos. So, jurisdiction here pertains to the limitation of our territories. So, may limitation lang yung territories natin. This extend to, the limitation only extends to these three subsequent elements. Terrestrial pertains to land. Fluvial pertains to the waters. And then aerial pertains to the air. Ang tanong, hanggang saan? Hanggang saan yung limitation natin? Hanggang saan yung jurisdiction natin? Okay, let's try to explore and examine up to what extent do we have the power over our terrestrial, fluvial, and aerial territories. Now, if you're familiar with the disputed claims in the South China Sea, ganito pong itsura niyan. Ito yung bansa natin, and then China, Taiwan, ang mga nagkiklaim kasi we have our islands here. Our Scarborough Shoal, yung Scarborough Shoal natin, and then we have the Spratlys Islands. May nagkiklaim yan, disputed claims, ibig sabihin ng disputed, pinag-aawayan. So, kiniklaim ng China na ang Philippine Kalayaan, Spratlys Islands, and Scarborough Shoal belong to them by using this demarcation line. So, gumawa rin sila ng kanilang sariling imaginary line. So, lahat ng ang jurisdiction daw ng China, nagsisimula dito sa kanilang land, papunta dito sa water, nasasakop tong Spratlys Islands, and then Scarborough Shoal. Yan daw ang pagmamayari ng China. So, if you own that area, the water, the land, you can exploit all the resources there for the development of your economy. So, ano ba ang laban natin against these claims. Now, we have the United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea, or your UNCLOS. Again, this is the UNCLOS, or the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. United Nations, ibig sabihin, ang nag-create ng batas nito yung mga iba't ibang bansa na part ng United Nations. Ang ginawa ng China not to be covered with this law is China tried to separate himself from this organization before China was part of the United Nations. We are also part of this organization. According to this organization, according to this law, each nation should follow the exclusive economic zone from the baseline of their land area. Gaano kalayo? It's 200 nautical miles. Okay, yun yung sinasabi. Yun yung sinasabi dun sa UNCLOS. If you have lands, if you have islands, from the baseline of your major island, of your country, mag-e-extend ka ng 200 nautical miles. That island, which is within this area, which is within this measurement, belongs to you. So, gaano kalayo ba ang 200 nautical miles? Now, if we're going to examine this image, ang layo ng 200 nautical miles is from the point, ito, territorial sea baseline, from the point kung saan mag-start yung tubig dun sa bansa natin. Okay, from the point, ito yung exclusive economic zone. Okay, this is your exclusive economic zone. So, we have to follow this line until here. So that's 200 nautical miles. So lahat ng aerial atin yan, atin yung tubig, and then atin din yung land. That's indicated in the UNCLOS, okay, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So 200 nautical miles from the territorial sea baseline na kung saan mag-start yung tubig. Diyan mag-start yung measurement ng 200 nautical miles. Ang tanong, gaano kalayo ang isang nautical mile? Ang isang nautical mile is 1.8 meters or 1.8 kilometers or 1,852 meters. Almost 2 kilometers ang isang nautical mile. Ganun kalayo yun. So, if we're going to assess our map, ito yung baseline ng bansa natin. Yung Scarborough Shoal, papunta dun sa baseline ng territory natin, so only 219 kilometers. 219 kilometers is only 118 nautical miles. So, it's within the law created by the United Nations. So technically speaking, Scarborough Shoal is within our jurisdiction. Next is the Spratlys Island. So from the baseline ng Palawan, kasi may lupa pa rin tayo dyan, yung lupa, yung na kung saan mag-start yung tubig, pupunta tayo dito, papunta tayo dun sa pinaka start ng Spratlys Island, na kung saan mag-start ulit yung land. Gaano kalayo yan? It's 232 kilometers or only 126 nautical miles. So, pasok pa rin po siya sa 200 nautical miles. So, if we're going to follow, if we're going to use the UNCLOS, technically speaking, panalo tayo. Panalo tayo laban sa China. Hindi ko alam kung ano yung kiniklaim ngayon ng China na sa kanila ngayon yung Spratlys Island and then Scarborough Shoal. I think meron na silang territory, meron na silang ginawang naval base sa Spratlys Islands. Okay, since we're only third world country, wala naman tayong panlaban na digmaan against China. We're going to wage war against China because of this dispute. Panigurado talo tayo. And it might spark a third world war. Why? Kasi nga pwedeng mangailam ang Amerika. China and America, there are countries na medyo malamig ang relationship. So kung nagkaroon ng conflict dito, pwedeng mangailam ang Amerika. Ang China po is in allied with Russia. So pag nagkampi ang China, Russia, and then North Korea, nasa gitna tayo. Nasa gitna tayo ng labanan. Baka gawin lang tayong territorial base ng Amerika. Madadamage, maraming madadamage sa bansa natin. So wala tayong choice but to hayaan na lang. Most likely ang ginawan strategy ni Duterte is to discard, maging malamig ang relationship sa Amerika at maging i-open yung relationship with China. Okay, that's the only strategy left, I think, that being used by our country, being used by our leaders, being used by Duterte to at least have a share, magkaroon man lang ng share dito sa pag-exploit ng China dun sa territories natin. Yun palagay ko ang ginagawa ni Duterte. So another claim, kung bakit the Scarborough Shoal and kung bakit ang Spratly Islands technically belongs to us. Another claim is we're going to use this very old map, Murillo map. This is the oldest map of our country. Okay, ito yung pinakamatandang mapa na nagpapakita ng bansa natin. So dito sa map na to, makikita natin itong island na to is part of the map. We call this map as the Murillo map. So we have two pieces of evidence that would suggest that those two disputed islands actually belong to us. First is the Murillo map, and then the other one is the 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone explained by the UNCLOS, or the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Now, we discuss the pre-colonial. Punta naman tayo dun sa sitwasyon ng bansa natin prior to the colonization of Spain. So what is the situation of our country before Spain arrived?